Love manifested. It is the privilege of every soul to find joy in communing with God and nature. For each creation is a complete unit of expression of the creative power. Christ perfectly manifested the love of the Maker. His life and teachings are the inspiration for the regeneration of all humanity. As children of God, we can manifest God's love if we allow Him to have His way in our lives. Joy comes through service even in toil and pain. Pure undefiled love is so powerful that all may lay down their lives for others. Self is forgotten. Then, come ye, my children. Hearken unto that which thou hast attained in thine self, that ye may put on the whole armor and be fruitful in the love of him who calls, that everyone should hear, should know, should understand, that God is in his heavens, and that his love endureth even to those who harden their hearts, and wills that no one should perish, rather that in the love as may be manifested in the daily walks, the daily activities of every soul, each may show through that manifested the love which impels the giving of everything within self, as a manifestation of He, the Master, having spoken with thee. Have more and know more of nature and of God's outdoors, rather than man's. See nature not in the rough, then, rather in the expressions of life. For each blade of grass, each blossom, each tree, each crag, each mountain, each river, each lake is as a gift from the creative forces in man's experience, that he may know more of the love of God. And as a soul, as a developing body then sees in the creatures, in the various kingdoms, as they care for their young, as they are selective in their mating, as they are mindful of the influences and the environs, learn from these nature's lessons or God's expression to the children of men. That he indeed is in his holy temple and is mindful of man's estate. If man minds the laws of nature, of God. For love is law, love is God. As to the experiences or sojourns in the earth, these we find as not so many, and yet these have been arranged as it were in the experience, until we find a great deal of emotions arising in the experience of the entity. And yet if there is the ability to quiet self and to turn to the within, these become more and more the beautiful pattern of experience, and with same joy in the joyousness of the Lord. And these should ever be cultivated, that ye become joyous. For they that would have must give. That is the cultivating, the tearing up, and yet in love. Which is that new commandment he gave, that ye love one another. What is love, then? Giving. Giving. For God so loved the world as to give his only Son, that was manifested in the flesh, that we through him might have access to him. While among the Roman populace, the entity became acquainted with those who were associated with, yea, kinsmen of, by flesh, the Master. Thus the entity knew of, not only embraced but practiced in the experience, those tenets of the Master. To love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy mind, thy body, and thy neighbor as thyself, is the whole of the law. As ye learned. Then in the name Sophia did the entity gain that which may yet in the present experience bring joy and peace, harmony in the experience of the entity. As the entity then in its own land, as well as in others, went about spreading that joy of the Christ consciousness. So may the entity in the present, in its writings, in its conversation, find that outlet as may bring the greater joy in this sojourn. And make for that growth, that development in which ye may indeed hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter into the joys of thy Lord. There was experienced from that sojourn which stands out the most in the present, those periods in Greece, or the Grecian land is called, And in the Persian influences, those little kindnesses, the little gentlenesses, the little activities that grow and grow in the experience of all. If these are but applied, in patience there may come the greater growth, the greater understanding, the greater ability to apply that which is in the present to make for the greatest peace and harmony, making for more of hope, more of brotherly love, more of faith in that in which all move and have their being. For he is a rewarder of those that love him for his sake, and not for self-indulgences, self-gratifications. But losing self in him, one becomes more and more aware of that love of him, for him, to him in one's experience. It is true for the entity, and for most individual souls manifesting in the earth, that nothing, no meeting comes by chance. These are a design or pattern. These patterns, however, are laid out by the individual entity. For there are laws. For law is love is law. And he hath not willed that any soul should perish, but hath with each temptation, each trial, prepared a way of escape. Thus is the pattern of life, of consciousness, when the individual entity is to make application of that the entity has interpreted in its experience as related to the spiritual, the mental and the material laws, these then become active. The law of love. And the experience of the entity. From Saturn we find the influences making for that as would be a channel in the associations and activities of the entity. Nothing to the body loses its value in the experience of the entity. Hence many influences and experiences that to others would be as the ashes of disappointment or ruin are used by the entity in making for the closer union of activities. And as has been described by those who have given an illustration of the spiritual forces, the entity rather buckles on the armor of the Lord, pushing forward into those influences of the fruits of the Spirit that may be manifested in the earth. Thus it meets these in such ways and manners as to bring hope and cheer and understanding in the experiences of many, as well as developing self in such measures and manners as to make for the life experience being worth, while throughout every disappointment, every experience, either of advancement or adversity. Should I attempt to win my husband back? If so, how? As has been given. As ye would that he should do to you, do ye even so to him. In every manner, in every way. Is the approach, the promise, the voice, not to thee? Are they in keeping with thy ideals of thy Maker and his love as shown to thee? Then win those to thee through the showing forth of the fruits of the Spirit of truth. Patience, long-suffering, brotherly love, loving kindness. And ye will find that the promptings will be thy experience. Only in casting thyself wholly upon the Lord may ye know the spiritual and mental peace that is the birthright of every soul. Only in defying same, through those things that are of any nature in the ways of abuse of privileges, ye become entangled in confusion, doubt and fear. Love the Lord and his ways, and keep them day by day,